Well, hello again from here at Whitley Park, where the sunshine in the sky is almost as bright as Jason Tindal's smile. And that's what we've had the pleasure of this morning. The reason being, Eddie Howe, well, he's not so good. He's been ill in bed all week and he hasn't been seen on the training pitches behind the hedges there. He's not there today either. The big fitness news is that Howe should be okay for Manchester United on Sunday. And given what we all think of the manager, don't underestimate his presence. It's absolutely massive that he's back and that he's in that dressing room before the game and then again on the touchline. But the good news from Jason Tindal was that all should be well. There's also some other big fitness updates to come with regards to Anthony Gordon and Alexander Isak. But in this video, I've asked for your questions, and one of the first that came in was, can Newcastle compete this summer with the big clubs? And that is now. We're into April, approaching May. The focus does turn towards transfers. A lot of questions come in on Matheus Cunha. We'll get to that in just a second. But can Newcastle compete this summer? Well, this goes back to what I've said in previous videos and just highlights and emphasises the magnitude of this game on Sunday, then again on Wednesday, and that need to be in the Champions League. And as a journalist, you're now having these conversations whereby you are knocking at doors, you are turning over stones, trying to find out what budgets may be, who the targets could be, who's going, who's staying, everything that comes together to make that summer. And summers now are so exciting. There's a whole new industry around transfers. We are looking ahead to that now because the summer is fast approaching. But what there is in between now for Newcastle is this 8-game mini-season, which was a 10-game mini-season. Post the cup final, it then became a 9-game mini-season. They've negotiated Brentford and Leicester with victories. It now becomes 8 games. And why I say it has that huge bearing is because these 8 games, only they will answer the question posed. Without the Champions League, no, Newcastle won't be able to compete with those top teams. And we'll take the example of Matheus Cunha now. This was a story I broke in my Newcastle Confidential column yesterday. I've been aware of Newcastle's admiration of the player for a while, but only in the past week or so have I had it confirmed that, yes, come this summer, there will be one of the clubs throwing the hat in the ring. We know the price at 62.5 million. The release clause from Wolves, Cunha is going to go. There's going to be a load of competition there, but if Newcastle aren't in the Champions League, they won't be in the running. That much has to be obvious now. The absolute imperative nature of getting into that top 5, and they've given themselves a great chance. The way they've returned after the cup final, they haven't played brilliantly against Brentford. I honestly thought that game was drifting more likely towards a defeat when Sandro Tonali intervened and did what he did. But it doesn't matter now. It's about points on the board. Even down at Leicester on Monday night, for the first 15-20 minutes, it threatened to be one of those I was there, Sheffield United away 8-0 moments. Could they go a goal better? Could they even set a Premier League record? Well, no, they fell off after that, and there are elements of the performance that perhaps suggest they're not really quite there in terms of being at the very best in that team we saw in the cup final. But what I do think is occasions like Sunday, and they have become a little bit of an occasions team. We saw the Arsenal 2 legs in the semi-final, then again against Liverpool at Wembley. It does bring out that very best. It takes them back to those top levels because they have got top players, they have got moments players, they have got occasions players, Joe Linton, Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, the actual midfield 3. Now, people talk a lot about the midfield 3. I would say that you probably wouldn't need more than 2 hands this season to count how many times they've actually been brilliant as a 3, as a collective, and they've dominated games. Now, at individual times, the 3 of them have absolutely made a difference. They've had good seasons, but then you look at that, I use that word, the collective. Have they been as many games as they possibly should be that brilliant midfield 3 control matches? I don't think so. I'll be honest with that. You take the case in point, Fulham at home, Brentford at home, Nottingham Forest at home. Did they control those games? Well, I would say no. And for all the potential and all of the theory around that midfield 3 being as fantastic as it has been at times, I don't think they've done it enough. Sunday, well, that's the sort of occasion when they will rise to it. Palace again on Wednesday night. If Newcastle, and this is why I say they've put themselves in such a good position with the 2 victories post-cup final, coupled with other results elsewhere, they're already on 53 points now. If they can take that to 59, historically, statistically, and I've been back over the numbers over the past few years, you're probably only going to need 65 to guarantee a top 5 finish. Now, could that be a little bit higher this year? it might just be when you look at the nature of the table and Manchester City and Villa on the fringes of it. But they won't be far off, and certainly I'm now absolutely of the belief, if Newcastle, and it's a big if, given we've seen them stumble at home at times this season, but if they could win the 5 remaining home games, Manchester United, Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Ipswich, and then Everton, which are 5 eminently winnable home games. So it's there for the taking now for Newcastle. And to come back to the question in a roundabout way, and to use the example of Matheus Cunha, well, yes, if Newcastle are a Champions League club, it gives the player the platform that they want, and this speaks to Cunha and other targets as well. It allows the wages to go a little bit further. It allows the club probably to keep on to players like Alexander Isak, which then in turn will entice Cunha and others, whoever it may be, those targets, to want to come and play with a player like Alexander Isak. So these next 8 games are absolutely huge. It feels like the club are a little bit of a crossroads, a sliding doors moment. Yes, we had the euphoria of the cup final, but Champions League football so much really does now ride on that. Now, questions on Cunha. Where would Newcastle see him play? Well, I think part of the attraction is the versatility. Now, one user come back at me and said he's never played right wing in his last 50 games. I've had a little look. I think he actually has, but yes, ordinarily he would operate as a centre forward, as a number 10 on the left. Occasionally he's gone back into midfield. He has played on the right, which is absolutely a priority position for Newcastle. So I think to see that versatility in him, and he's not a player who, like a Harvey Barnes, for example, who wants to play on the left, and that's where they've got to play. You've just got to look back over the list of the positions and the roles in which he's being used, and he seems a player who is fairly happy to be moved about. Never really does he have that consistent run, and he's shown himself in all of those various positions to be effective. I think he's a wonderful player. Now, is he Newcastle's absolute number 1 target and all the eggs are in that basket? Well, no, of course there isn't, but he's a player they like. He's a player who, if they're in the Champions League, will they register interest? Will they be able to activate that clause? I think they probably will do, but there's a lot of competition because he is a top player. Personally, I think he's got that charisma, that ability, something that would light up St James's Park. Everything I see about him, he screams a Newcastle player to me. He has done for a long while now. Now, could Newcastle compete with those other clubs and make him and others believe that St James's is the place for them? Well, yes. I think Eddie Howe is huge in this, and someone like Cunha has only got to look at what he's done with his Brazilian compatriot Joe Linton. He's turned him into an international midfielder. Now, he was a misfit centre forward when Eddie Howe arrived at the club. The development of Anthony Gordon, Tino Livramento, Lewis Hall, Dan Burn, all have become full England internationals under Eddie Howe. Players look at that. So I think Howe is a huge draw. And with regard to Cunha himself, well, I've already touched on it. There's Joe Linton and Bruno Guimaraes already at the club. So I think this is one, if things do fall into place with regard to the Champions League, and I keep on coming back to the same point because it is so big, they have got a chance. But yes, there are other targets, and this was some of the questions that came in. Brian Mbeumo, is he on the list for the summer? Well, the information back to me is yes, he is a target. And Mbeumo, Semenyo, all the names we've spoken about, they'd be foolish to only focus on one player. There's a long list there, and the closer we get to the summer, the shorter that list becomes when you learn of demands with regards agents, players, wages, transfer fees and everything else. But for now, we're identifying the names who are on that list, and absolutely Matheus Cunha is one of them. And for me, he's a player I would love to see up here at Newcastle. Now, as ever, lots of questions about Alexander Isak in the immediacy. Is he fit for Sunday? Yes, the word from Jason Tindal and everything coming back this week is that Alexander Isak is trained. He's fine. Is there concern over those little niggles? No, I don't think so. I think they wouldn't have played him down at Leicester on Monday night if there was any real concern. I think Alexander Isak, to all intents and purposes, is fit. He's available and he's ready to go. And I would fully expect him, as we stand here now, to start the remaining 8 matches. Now, another little update on Isak, and this was something I wrote in my Newcastle Confidential column yesterday, is that increasingly the word in the game now is that Isak is going to stay at St James's Park. And I used the example in my column of Liam Delap and the folk who exist around him, and they're potentially this summer going to have the pick of 5 or 6 clubs at the top. Now, Newcastle have watched Delap at times this season, and for £30 million, I think you'd be silly not to be registering an interest, because he's a player perhaps on an open market would be worth at least double that. I really like him, what I've seen this season. I think there's scope for great improvement there as well. But Delap doesn't want to go to a club whereby he's not going to have a chance to be the number one and has that guarantee or that promise of minutes. And the word coming back to me this week is that Delap's camp have looked at the situation at Newcastle and they're of the opinion, as are some of the targets as well. This is something which is going around the game in terms of sporting directors, agents, intermediaries, everything else, is that the likelihood is that Alexander Isak stays at Newcastle next season. And I just thought that was really interesting to get that sort of industry feedback this week. The reason being, he's got 3 years to run on his contract. I think people in the game now know the absolute determination of the club, from Eddie Howe to the very top, Yasser Romain, to keep Isak here. And he's also got 3 years to run on his contract. And if they do get Champions League, well, then that does give Isak that platform he wants and enables the club to sit down and perhaps renegotiate a contract in some form at the end of the year with more monetary reward. Because undoubtedly, Isak, we use that phrase, on the open market, what would his wage demands be? What could he earn? What does he deserve? Well, it's probably more than what he's currently on at Newcastle. So there's a little bit left to run on this, and it might just be a saga that does rumble until the end of the season and into the summer. But certainly my own take, based on information, conversations, instinct, everything which goes into this, I'd be more confident of Alexander Isak being at Newcastle next season now than I perhaps was previously at different junctures during this campaign. But to wrap up, he's okay for Sunday, and I think he'll probably be okay for next season too. Now, Anthony Gordon, is he fit for Sunday? Again, revealed this in the confidential column yesterday. Gordon has made progress this week. It didn't sound great, did it, on Monday night when Eddie Howe came out after Leicester and said there was no real time frame on his return? Well, yeah, he's made progress, had a good week with the physios, was out on the grass yesterday, and it sounds like he might have a chance of making the bench against Manchester United. Will he come back into the team? That was another question. Well, no, I think that would be unfair on Harvey Barnes. Now, once Gordon's fully fit beyond that, and you go to Crystal Palace and Aston Villa, will he then come back in for Barnes? Well, I'll be honest with us in terms of my assessment on Barnes' performance. I think he's been good. I don't think he's been great. I don't think he's been at a level whereby you look at it and say, Anthony Gordon, no way, he's just got to wait his turn. I think he's done enough to stay in for now, but I'd still like to see Barnes go to another level. He's scored goals, he's contributed in goals, he's done well. I'm not saying he's done poorly, but has he been outstanding? No, not yet for me. I still think, and this isn't a criticism, this is just an observation of where the player is at, and there is huge mitigation given he's only just come back into the team before the cup final. So yeah, I would still like to see Harvey Barnes take that all-round game to another level, somewhere approaching that intensity and that consistent threat that Anthony Gordon gives when he's at his best. So, but isn't it good that Newcastle now, it looks as if during the remaining 8 matches, for what will probably feel like the first time, could have Gordon and Barnes really competing for that starting spot on the left, and that's a good thing for Newcastle. Now let's finally turn our attention to the game on Sunday. I've already expressed this, it's always big against Manchester United, but in the context of Newcastle's season, this is just absolutely huge, and it's that type of occasion where those in the stands, those on the pitch, they really do come together, and I cannot see anything other than a home victory this weekend. And I've been on the record of this for a while now, be it on Sky, on radio, in print, talking on these videos. I don't think Manchester United are very good. I've said it for so long. There's just real issues at that club. They're either signing players who are on the way down or players who are on the way up who they subsequently drag down. And this talks to elements of the earlier questions. Can Newcastle compete with those top clubs? Well, Manchester United are going to be looking to spend money and sign players this summer. But if I was any would-be, target of Manchester United, I wouldn't want to go there. I'd look at the improvement and everything that comes about of players who join Eddie Howe's Newcastle, and for my own personal development and career, I'd want to go there. And I think occasions and matches like Sunday will and should reinforce that difference between the teams in terms of the improvement in players, the level of coaching, everything about it. I think Newcastle will go on Sunday, everything will come together. There's the display, War Flags display for Kevin Keegan as well, which will only add to the atmosphere. And I'm really confident this is going to be a comfortable victory for Newcastle. I'll go as far as to put a scoreline on this one. I think it might even be 3-0. So there you go. You know, the recent record against Manchester United would also support that as well. They're just a better team. They show they're a better team down at Old Trafford, and I expect them to follow up with that this weekend. Well guys, that's it for now. Just as my friend with the lawnmower arrives right on cue, thank you so much for the questions. Sorry I couldn't get through all of them. I think I've put a few together there and sort of merged them into one. A lot on the subject again of Isak, Cunha and fitness as well. So for you FPLers, if you have got this far, yeah, Isak should start. Gordon should probably be on the bench this weekend. The Newcastle might again, well, they might just be unchanged. So thank you so much for watching. Tell me your thoughts below the line. What do you think on targets like Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo and others? What do you think the priority should be? Where could you see someone like Cunha fitting in? So much to go at. As ever, so exciting covering this football club. You know, we thought it had peaked with the Carabao Cup final this season. Absolutely, that was a peak. But I just think what we've got between now and the end of the season is massive, huge. I keep on coming back to these same words. That's because it is. Okay, thank you so much for watching, guys. Hit like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, take care. I'll see you on Sunday. Bye-bye.